small percentage of the Israeli population, several thousand strong, they are united by religious zealotry and ultranationalism. They oppose Israeli democracy and any peaceful dealings with the Palestinians.
If we want to understand Rabbi Kahana, his message was that we need to go to war because, in fact, what will bring our redemption is not prayer. What will bring redemption is war. But today we're going in exactly the opposite direction. Instead of war, there's peace now. There's an attempt to prevent war at all costs. And if we can force the army to go back to being offensive, an army of revenge, an army which cares about Jews more than anybody else, then we'll be able to bring the final redemption in the only way possible, through war. War now.
Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel? President Obama says he supports sanctions on Iran. Hagel voted against them. Hagel voted against labeling Iran's Revolutionary Guard a terrorist group. And while President Obama says all options are on the table for preventing a nuclear Iran, Hagel says military action is not a viable, feasible, responsible option. President Obama, for Secretary of Defense, Chuck Hagel is not a responsible option.
Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. Today is Saturday, December 22nd, 2012, and I'm Darko. Alright, so, yeah, I just wanted to include this because I just actually titled my video last time on Wednesday, Zionist Mount Attack Against Hagel, because he himself apparently isn't a Zionist. So, Chuck Hagel faces relentless assaults. The potential Obama nominee for Secretary of Defense faces intensified attacks, putting his candidacy in jeopardy. It goes on here and it says he continues to face an onslaught of attacks to an extent that puts his confirmation, even his nomination, in serious doubt. He's an outsider when it comes to his own party in the realm of foreign policy. Hawks have harshly criticized him as unworthy of the position because of his record of opposition to interventionism, military quagmires, sanctions, and for not towing the line demanded by a pro-Israeli lobby. New Hampshire Republican senator said on Thursday if he's nominated and comes before the Senate Armed Service Committee, I plan to vigorously question him on his prior statements and his positions on Israel and Iran in particular. A spokesman for the Cuban-American senator, Marco Rubio, suggested that he might put on hold a Hagel nomination due to differences on Cuba policy. Hagel argues against the decades-old policy of sanctioning and isolating Cuba. Adding to the onslaught, says here of foreign policy criticisms, Hagel on Thursday faced new disapproval for comments he made 14 years ago that are perceived to be anti-gay. So it was interesting when I saw this yesterday, this article come out after I titled my video that Zionists mount an attack. So this is how they do the attack, right? Because I've mentioned before, there's not many of them. So they always have to co-opt and act as if they give a shit about a minority of oppressed people. So usually they'll like I've mentioned before earlier tonight, they'll pull out their little toolbox and they'll pull out like a little tool, a little card, and say, oh, you're a racist, ooh, you're a homophobe, you're a hate speecher, you know, and then it gets everybody up and stir, and everybody actually loses the point of why this person is being attacked and who is attacking him. It's a good tactic because it gets people emotionally charged and they get distracted from the facts. Such as this comment that was made 14 years ago in 1998. They drag it out of the dirt. Probably hasn't been brought up since. But similar to Ron Paul, say what you will about the guy, whether he was a shill or not, for the globalists. Basically what? They pulled out the racist card on him from a comment that he made, what, like 20 years ago? And I don't even know if it was a comment. I think it was just indirect support or something that he had for some magazine that was considered racist, which anybody can be considered racist. And I actually received a comment after making a couple of videos. I'm not really sure what he was referring to, but the day approaches. 2 days ago, I left a comment And I basically saw that, well, maybe I should take the time to figure out what I'm going to say. And I didn't have the time to comment right there and then. But he actually left a follow-up comment just not even 24 hours later saying that I ignored him. The comment basically consists of, as someone who is offended by the generic term Zionist, which on YouTube is synonymous with anti-Jew for the most part, would you take 10 minutes of your time and make a short video explaining what you mean when you say Zionist? It will help me determine whether I should or wish to patronize this channel further, as you seem to lay all the ills of mankind on the Zionist door. Thanks and shalom. So he said, like I said, a day later, well, you ignored a simple request to explain what Zionist means to you. The next two vids and slam them. By your usage, however, it is clear that you are a racist and a self-important bigot. So I'll say goodbye to this channel. It is less than worthless, and one day soon you will stand before the judge and be found guilty. Good luck with that. Now you can boost your ego and block, delete. Couldn't care less later. Alright, well, day approaches. Unfortunately, like I said, I didn't have the time to comment to you in the speedy manner in which you would have desired. When I wanted to respond, I can't anymore. You see, I can't do any of these things. I can't share my videos. I can't add to a playlist. Coincidentally, right after you left that comment, many of the features have basically been gone. So, but my answer, no, I will not take 10 minutes because I just made a video, basically taking about a good 5 minutes of a video explaining what I mean by the term Zionist. I've explained it here and there many times about how it's not actually just Jews. It's what? It's Christians. It's white people. It's anybody that likes the independent terrorist state of Israel and supports that. Originally, I ignored your comment because it is typical Zionist tactic to play on the defense, to go on and like Israel that kills children and goes in there and tries to create a state based off killing people and displacing them. The Palestinians, of course, to create a, quote, Jewish state. Unfortunately, they're not really Jews, as you saw. They're called the Khazars from Khazaria, and they actually stole the label of Jews, and anybody who talks out against the Khazars, which are Zionists, and basically share the name, they claim as being anti-Semitic. So the whole idea of Zionism and the Israeli state is based off falsities and lies and manipulation and exploitation of their own people. That is why I'm against it. So if you do not wish to patronize my channel, it's not that big of a deal, so shalom. And I'm not going to block and delete your comment because I can't. U.S. alone in blocking UN resolution opposing Israeli settlements, but for U.S. veto, Security Council would have passed legally binding resolution obligating Israel to stop the settlement plan. The United States was alone on Wednesday when all other 14 members of the United Nations Security Council condemned Israeli settlement plans in Jerusalem after banning a legally binding resolution because of an imminent U.S. veto. Obama nominates John Kerry as the next Secretary of State. Very interesting because if Hagel does get in there, this guy Kerry is skull and bones, who's popped up here and there, as far as the election, getting Bush into office. He was never really meant to win. I think he was part of the Iran-Contra scandal as well. So he'll be there to counterbalance what's going on. And the Defense Department, Secretary of State, that's where Clinton was. So they have a lot of sway in international geopolitical power. So his big concern right off the bat is to play into the neocons' card, saying, ooh, he's tough on terror, right? Kerry suggests a military role in diplomat security to re-examine how the military might play a greater role in protecting diplomats in dangerous regions in the wake of the mission. Well, unfortunately, he's just reading off a script card, because I covered this earlier this year as commandos raid Tampa to basically mock disaster and civil unrest to rescue mayors and bankers. Basically people are getting pissed. They're going to rescue him. U.S. State Department demands power to declare war. Clinton goes commando and sells diplomats as shadow warriors. Clinton, wearing pearls and silver and a black blouse, climbed the stage and began to speak. As soon as it all made more sense, she had an idea to sell and to defend. She described a vision which shadowy U.S. and allied special forces working hand in hand with America's embassies and foreign governments to play a key role in preventing low-intensity conflicts. Where prevention fails, the same commando diplomat team goes on the attack. So it's no surprise that part of this $633 billion defense package bill is actually going towards increasing Marines at embassies and that. U.S.-backed militants will never take over Syria. So a political analyst tells Press TV that there are very important vital interests for the American administration in Syria, and that is why they do not want to go for a solution right now. He said they have been fighting for 2 years now, and it does not appear at all that there is a possibility for them to deal the government a deadly blow that can put them in the upper hand and give them a way to reign over. And Russia disagrees, but says Aleppo demonstration denounces Syria militants. Large numbers of Syrians have held a demonstration against the foreign-backed militants in Aleppo. Protesters chanted slogans denouncing the armed groups and foreign backers and accusing them of destabilizing the country, along with urging the Syrian army to retake areas captured by the armed groups and to restore law and order. In addition, they accused the militants of stealing people's belongings. Anti-NATO protests held in Turkey as troops deploy on the Syrian border. It says here that hundreds of U.S. soldiers have arrived today, with another 400 German soldiers expected to come in the coming weeks. It says more troops from across NATO are also planning deployments along the Turkish border with Syria at the behest of the Turkish government. Don't forget they have the Patriot missiles that are they're in shipment and they're being set up right now. Also, the UN was mulling how many troops they can get in there as well. Although Turkish officials seem really pleased with this, across the political spectrum, Turkish citizens are extremely opposed to the deployment, fearing NATO will turn Turkey into a battlefield. Jordan warns against continued arming of jihadist rebels in Syria. They fear rebels will attack Israel and Jordan next. In Sunni-dominated nations, the sectarian nature of the Syrian civil war is what they call it, has meant almost universal endorsement of the Sunni rebels. And it says this is not the case in Jordan, however, where top officials in the Hashemite kingdom are increasingly disquieted by the Salafist nature of the rebellion. They say the region risks becoming a black hole that sucks jihadists from around the world, and fearing that they won't stop with Syria. The rebel leaders have openly talked about expansion of the war beyond Syria, with many hoping to move on to Israel next. Jordanian officials say their nations could also be targeted. Al-Qaeda grows powerful in Syria as endgame nears, so it's not a very big surprise. So like I mentioned before, actually part of their policy, I've read these articles and these policy think tank reports, is that Israel actually benefits by that threat. Then they get to go on the attack like you saw in the first video. So we know that Al-Qaeda is being used. Most of the, quote, rebels are actually foreigners. And someone doubted that, but I'll get to that here. Fears Syria is turning into sectarian conflict. So this is what it originally was supposed to be from the beginning, not peaceful activists protesting. It was foreigners from different religious sects, especially Sunnis, and they were supposed to wage war on the Ba'ath Party, the Alawites, which actually there was supposedly a massacre that took place, and it was completely blanketed out by the media, like 200 people, and people abducted, along with Christians and other minorities. They said they seized control of villages populated by religious minority groups in Syria's Hama province amid fears that civil war is turning into sectarian conflict, which is great. That's another plus for the globalists who want to take down Assad. But like I was trying to stress before, it's not just sectarian war, which is what they want. It's a foreign invasion. So UN Syrian rebels come from 29 countries. The influx of Sunni fighters adds to the sectarian tone of civil war. The shift has been readily apparent to those watching as the rebel leadership has gone from overwhelmingly military defectors to a collection of Islamic clerics and Muslim Brotherhood activists calling the shots in the matter of months, opening the doors from Al-Qaeda like Al-Nusra Front. Syrian rebel infighting could take dangerous turns if Assad falls. They say the disparate Syrian opposition groups could lose their common enemy. Putin says that he's not preoccupied, or Russia is not preoccupied with the fate of Syria's Assad. They now accept that Syria's leaders' days are numbered. So they're saying that there's going to be sectarian war if Assad falls. Putin's saying that he's going to fall, and we're not going to support him. And they're starting to evacuate their people. They're drawing up plans, Russia that is, to get out almost 30,000 Russians by air and sea. Well, be careful, because you had Turkey, doing the first skyjacking of planes, of Russian planes. Now you have Syrian rebels, the terrorists, firing warning shots at airliners at Aleppo airport. And we'll return with this article, UN defends NATO's genocide in Syria. Thank you.